Eid falls at a very interesting time in 2025. It is smack in the middle of an election season with a general election soon to come. But there are also many social issues that the Islamic community is confronting both here at home and abroad, not least the war that is happening in Gaza. But also the Islamic community has been fierce advocates for the repatriation of nationals who are stuck in Syria. Here at home, crime continues to be a topic that they have to confront on a daily basis. My guest this week on The Big Interview has been a fierce advocate not just for the repatriation of nationals who are stuck in Syria, but for also reforms that will make this country better. My guest this week is Nafeesa Mohammed. Nafeesa Mohammed, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Ryan, for having me on your program. And may I say, Assalamu alaikum, namaste, and good day to all your viewers and listeners out there.
Eid Mubarak to you and your family.
Eid Mubarak to the entire country.
Eid comes around at what you once described to me off camera as a crucial time in 2025, smack in the middle of a political season, but there are also so many other social issues happening. If you had to define this Eid in 2025 in the context of the climate Trinidad and Tobago is living through right now, how would you summarize it?
I thank Almighty God that we have Ramadan and Eid taking place, because for my own self, for example, with what I see unfolded in the political arena, it has given me that strength to exercise great restraint. Because, you know, Eid is a very joyous occasion that comes at the end of the holy month of Ramadan. And fasting during the holy month of Ramadan is a compulsory pillar of Islam. And during this period, you know, like, for example, in these last 10 days before Eid, we have a special night, Laylatul Qadr, is the night of power, which you look forward to because it is a time when the Holy Quran was revealed and it's a very sacred night. So during the month of Ramadan, you engage in a lot of intense devotions, and you are able to go into your own introspection, and it's a time for that kind of purification. At the end of it, you come out feeling recharged and ready to go. So it's a time of restraint and sacrifices. Now here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are an interesting society of diverse races, religion, culture, and everything. And sometimes in the midst you might be praying your namaz and a truck might be passing with music and whatnot, but this is who we are in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a very exciting period, but it's also a time where the spirit of Ramadan and Eid-ul-Fitr is useful for all of us to reflect and to ponder and to introspect. A
good time for self-introspection for the Islamic community. But someone who has served in the Senate, someone who has served in government, if you had to introspect on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago, where are we at right now as a country?
As I have been saying, it is my view that we have been regressing. Our country and our society had been making progress. You remember in 1986, I mean, I come from a PNM background, born and bred. I used to call myself a child of the PNM, but since 2020, I resigned from the PNM. But I remember in 1986 when the NAR came into being, there was this spirit of that one love phrase was really profound, because the country came together. I remember in Woodford Square, 20,000 people assembling, right? And the outcome of that election, that my uncle, who was in the parliament for 30 consecutive years, he lost the Barataria seat. My father didn't contest, but it was a moment in our history when the country came together. And that spirit of one love is sadly lacking. And instead of us evolving and moving towards building that genuine unity, I find that especially in the last couple of years, we have regressed and the country has become more polarized than ever before.
You blame politicians for that on both sides of the aisle.
On both sides, but the politics has really become nasty and brutish, and it's about power and greed and no longer about the people. And I can say that with conviction because, as I said, I mean, when I resigned from the PNM in 2020, what I see unfolding and happening as the PNM, a party that has such a rich history, with all due respect, it has become disconnected from the people at the ground level, which is very unfortunate. And it's something that, you know, this election will give us, the ordinary citizens of this country, the opportunity to be able to speak with our fingers. And politicians, regardless of which party you belong to, I think you have to get your intentions correct. Because politics should also be more so about the people. People are getting involved in politics, in my view, for their own purposes, their own aggrandizement, and their own agendas. They, you know, which contract they can get, which position. Look at what just happened in Tobago when the discussions that led to the current Prime Minister being accepted by all members of Parliament who were present in Tobago. When you hear about a 9-11 vote, or whether it was a 11-9 vote, we will never know. But all of a sudden, everybody just suddenly fell in line. Why? Were there negotiations going on behind the scenes just to hold on to your ministerial portfolio? And this is something that I consider to be so unfortunate, because people have to recognize that politics is ephemeral, you know. You may be in a position now, and tomorrow you're gone from that position, because you have to be truthful to yourself and look around.
You are one of those PNM members, and I should say former member, but you are still very much interested in what happens to the political party that not only you served, but your father served as well, Nafeesa. You are very concerned in the manner in which Prime Minister Stuart Young ascended to that role.
Of course, because to me, it goes contrary to the spirit of democracy. Because look at it, make a comparison with what happened in Canada when the Prime Minister there made that decision to resign as Prime Minister. He also said he was resigning as political leader of the party, and they have gone through the processes. In this case, it is rather sad and unfortunate that this unfolded, and it's still unfolding, where you have a Prime Minister without a mandate, but because of whatever little constitutional loopholes that they have found, he was named Prime Minister. Now there's no Parliament. You have no mandate from the people, and more so from the party we belong to the first past the post system. The Westminster system of government is based on the first past the post concept. You have the Constitution, but you have the Representation of the People's Act. And that governs so that the party that wins the majority of seats will form the government, and the leader of that party becomes the Prime Minister.
Your concerns aside, do you feel Prime Minister Stuart Young has enough of what it takes to get over the line for the PNM as leader?
But with all due respect, I mean, he just came into the politics from around 2014, and as well-intentioned as he may be, I think he lacks the experience and the understanding of the demographics in our society. And even though now the optics, he's more concerned about the PR aspects and building up a crowd to go on a walkabout and going down to an iftar in Debe Mosque. I know he has family roots there, but where were you all these years? And when I, for example, have been an advocate for certain injustices that have unfolded, for example, within the Muslim community. Since 2018, there was this so-called terror plot, and it became a plot to destabilize Carnival. And then the Commissioner of Police said it was unusual criminal activities. We have a problem with crime in our country. In our country, we do not have an issue with terrorism, but the way how this thing played out, and where was Stuart Young in all of this? He was there as Gary Sobers in the office of the Prime Minister, and he served as a Minister of National Security for a number of years. You have another unresolved issue, which is one of my greatest disappointments, because there was a lot of struggling and advocacy for the repatriation of 72 children and 25 women who are all citizens of our country, who are still languishing in camps in Syria and in Iraq. And the Prime Minister the former Prime Minister, today, in fact, in my memory, in my phone, I saw when he had a meeting with some of his ministers, including the current Prime Minister, Stuart Young, and where he appointed a repatriation committee chaired by former Speaker Nafeesa Mohammed and with former Ambassador Patrick Edwards and Kwesi Atiba from Laventille, to work together to be able to repatriate, because a commitment was made to repatriate our citizens.
Coming up after the break, Nafeesa Mohammed opens up on her decision to resign from the PNM.
At the end of the day, one of the characteristics of this government has been arrogance.
That is the source of when you turned against the PNM, when that repatriation of nationals didn't happen as fast as the Muslim community wanted it to happen, and didn't happen at all.
Yes, and it is one of the major reasons why I resigned from the PNM. At the time, Faris Al-Rawi was the Attorney General, and it was that issue, and plus those carnival rates. Imagine, since 2018, from then till now, no one has seen it fit to investigate and get to the root of what caused that so-called plot, or whatever it was, if it wasn't a fabrication. My observation is that, and the failure to repatriate these citizens now, is that because it's a humanitarian crisis involving children. And I have been saying, because I worked hard in the establishment of the family court and the Children's Authority with other experts, I am mindful of the fact that we have a new child protection framework, legal and administrative framework in place. We don't need legislation to bring these children home. You need political will.
I do want to ask you on that very same point, Nafeesa, then. Do you feel, how important is the Islamic vote in this election? And do you think those two things those two factors, two very key factors that you talked about, one would be the so-called terror plot that occurred in 2018 and was later dismissed, but also the repatriation, will those two factors play on the minds of Muslim voters on April 28th?
Well, it continues to affect several families in the Muslim community. And, you know, it really saddens me because, you know, these are our citizens. The families have been grieving for the reunification with their loved ones. And a commitment was given 2 years ago on March 28, 2023. It's in the front page of the newspapers, where there was this hope that the government was going to bring these children and women back. 2 years later, here we are on the brink of an election, and these children and women have not yet been brought back home.
And you are saying that we have the necessary accommodation and institutions and systems and support to bring back these nationals without causing any major shift in national security concerns in the country.
33 of these children are below the age of 8 years. That means they don't even have the capacity to commit a crime, but yet they have been stereotyped. And what concerns me is the high level of Islamophobia that exists in certain deep quarters in government. And that needs to be overcome. And you have to have the political will. You have to show that you really are being genuine and you intended or you wanted to bring these children and women back home. And if you look, you asked me about you know, what impact it will have. Let us look at the reality of our politics. It is such that there are constituencies that you consider to be marginal. I belong to the Barataria Sanwan constituency, and the Muslim community in Barataria Sanwan is a very significant community. One family where there are 5 children languishing in that refugee camp, that gentleman's father was the imam of our mosque for 40 years. These are peaceful, law-abiding citizens, very decent family with all the resources that if their children are brought back home, you can rest assured they are not going to pose a problem in the society. They have teachers, they have lawyers, doctors, professionals there who will help.
But I want to pick you up on the point of, you made a very loaded statement that there is Islamophobia deep within the trenches of some of these political organizations. But there are those who follow Islam, Muslim senators, Muslim House of Representatives. Your MP is a Muslim as well. So there are Muslim representatives on both sides of the aisle.
Exactly. Minister Kazim Hussein is the Muslim voice in cabinet. What has he done? With all these issues being out there, what has he done to assist? Has he been able to sit with the Minister of National Security and the Attorney General to work out a timeline to bring these children and women back home? But you see, that's just how the reality of the politics. You have people in positions. The MP for Barataria Sanwan has been vocal and is very accurate with the issues. And at the end of the day, April 20th is just around the corner. And whatever hurts that have been inflicted, there was sufficient time to repair it. I have gone to great lengths to try to reach out and meet and talk to my former colleagues, and not one of them has seen it fit to this day to allow me to have an interaction with them. I don't know if I've just become persona non grata. I accept it if that is the will of Almighty God. But at the end of the day, I want everybody to realize these are children and women who are victims. Whatever the circumstances that caused them to be there, at the end of the day, most of the fathers have already been killed. All right? But they are in need of protection. They are displaced citizens from our country, and it's a humanitarian issue. So you need to balance the law enforcement considerations with your humanitarian considerations. That is what is lacking. From government, there is a lack of humanitarianism in so many aspects of government. We saw it with the Paria tragedy, when you had an opportunity to do everything possible to rescue those 4 men in the pipeline, and instead, law enforcement was instructed to not allow people to go into the pipeline. Why? And this is where there needs to be some kind of introspection and a reflection by all citizens of this country to recognize that at this time in our history, that institutions are falling apart. And April 20th is a time to restore, to rebuild, pick up the pieces and rebuild, and let our country come back to its glorified status.
The Prime Minister, Stuart Young, was National Security Minister when this issue began surfacing, that you are acutely aware of. Do you see him as both Prime Minister pre and possibly Prime Minister post April 28th now picking up this matter in a different way? Or do you feel because he was National Security Minister and nothing happened and then entered Prime Ministership, do you feel that this issue, should the PNM remain in power, will continue to lag? To
me, I have gotten feedback that some of those in very high positions had adopted an attitude to leave them right there. So the political will has not been there. If it is now, is a wake-up call because it's election and people reflect and they realize that, look, mistakes have been made and they're willing to repair the damage that has been done or to manage the situation, fine, I will be the happiest person.
You sound very frustrated with the government, having been a government, an opposition senator with the PNM before. What do you think, Nafeesa Mohammed, will be the major factors that decide the April 28th general elections in Trinidad and Tobago? What are people who are going to the polls be thinking about when they stain their fingers in red?
We have a history, and it has worsened now, where the voting patterns is based on tribalism. But now, I think it has gone there. So the gap between the have and the have-nots, it's widening. And that disconnect from the people that has happened under this administration, it is already manifesting itself on the political hustings. There is a huge disconnect on the ground. I know efforts are being made. The two parties will be hotly contesting various seats. Yesterday, I saw the Prime Minister walking in Mount Lambert, which is very near to my hometown. And it's a very well-orchestrated red crowd that has gathered and doing what they are accustomed doing. And the other party will be also on the ground doing the same thing, because the UNC had a meeting in the St. Joseph La Jolla complex last night as well. So things are heating up. And at the end of the day, Trinidadians as citizens, Tobago in the last election showed and taught Trinidad a lesson in terms of when enough is enough. And this April 28th poll day is a time when our citizens will have an opportunity for our fingers to speak.
You sound like you are stopping very short of endorsing Kamla Persad-Bissessar.
I resigned from the PNM. I have not joined any other party. I'm very disturbed and saddened by the proliferation of parties, because it's like the leaders of these parties failing to recognize what the realities are. And I come from a very strong political tradition, and I've seen how this thing has evolved. We have regressed more than ever. At the end of the day, you know, I am all for national unity, and whichever party that is able to engender that kind of coming together and unity, it must be a formula different from 1986 that caused a collapse in government within a year or so. It needs to be different from what happened with the partnership in 2010. And if it is that there is some cohesion and some glue, when I go into that booth, I know in 2010, I did not want to be a hypocrite. And I resigned from the PNM because I fell in love with my member of parliament as a representative of the people. He came into Mohammedville as a young man engaged in the politics. And 5 years later, he's going up back. And I have utmost respect for my member of parliament, Saddam Hussein. He's going up against my blood relative, Yunus Ibrahim. At the end of the day, one of the characteristics of this government has been arrogance. And that is where the disconnect with people has materialized. And if you are asking to speak to people and they do not have the time or will not entertain a conversation with you, it speaks volumes. It's either they are afraid, either they have been instructed not to speak, or they just don't care. And this is what elections does. It gives the people in any country the opportunity to speak with their fingers.
Coming up after the break, Nafeesa Mohammed weighs in on the tragedy unfolding in Gaza.
It makes a mockery of the United Nations, which was formed with the philosophy of never again.
You have had the opportunity to serve. You come from a family of service to this nation. Your father also served this nation. You have served this nation. You have resigned from the PNM. Your life has been in the service of this country. Do you see yourself serving once more in politics? But if not in politics, how do you see yourself serving?
I consider, I mean, this is how we were brought up.
Maybe I'm not asking the question right. Do you see yourself returning to the PNM or representative politics at some point?
I resigned from the politics. I have been trying to batten my crease, but there are issues that continue to exist, and I would like to continue to be an advocate as an attorney at law. I would like to continue to be able to seek justice and fairness and equality across the board, if I can, because that's the way I was brought up. In terms of political ambition and agenda and thing, I mean, whatever it is, if I am asked to serve, of course I will be delighted. But at the end of the day, I'm realistic about things, and at the end of the day, in whatever capacity that I'm in, I'm able to help and you know, carry out the motto in our lives, which our father instilled in us, which is service to community.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Gaza. It is important. It is Eid, and I cannot ignore it. There is a human tragedy taking place right now in Gaza as we speak. It is Eid, one of the, the prominent day in the Islamic faith. That tragedy that is unfolding must hurt the conscience of the Muslim community in this country.
Not only in this country, all over the world. And I can tell you that during the month of Ramadan, in the night of Laylatul Qadr, throughout the world, very special supplications are being made for persons who are in that war zone area. And the situation with the Palestinians is really something. It makes a mockery of the United Nations, which was formed with the philosophy of never again. And it is it is really, whatever it is, there's a lot of history behind it, and God is in control.
Do you not foresee an end to this, given the stance by the United States since January 18th?
Well, when the President Trump came into power, and I got the impression that there would be a deliberate effort to bring peace in the world, not just in that region. And as to whether that will happen, well, we see how things are unfolding, and it is something that all we can do is pray and hope and ask God to help those people who are suffering. It is territorial warfare as well, but whatever it is, there are deep spiritual roots and history involved in that part of the world.
I want to end where I began, Nafeesa, and that is what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago at the moment. What role does the Muslim community play in helping reshape the challenges we face as a society?
Ryan, I want to let you know that where I come from, the Muslim community has always been contributing towards the development of our country and in communities throughout this country. I am sure where you are from, there are masjids throughout the length and breadth of this country, and you look at the evolution of the Muslim community. We have helped to build this country, and we continue to do what we can. Muslims in this country, the majority of Muslims, are peaceful, law-abiding citizens who are committed towards working together side by side with the rest of the country in doing what it can to help. You check around. At this time, you would see Muslims all over very quietly, giving their zakat and helping in depressed communities, helping to feed people, not for show, but it is our duty as Muslims in terms of our zakat and our sadaqah, especially at this time of the year. We will continue to want to help in the rebuilding of Trinidad and Tobago. I have no doubt about it. The Muslim community is very diverse. We have about 50 Muslim groups and organizations. But from the very beginning, the earliest organizations to have been established in this country, you have had the Takbiratul Islamic Association, the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association, the Trinidad Muslim League, the Islamic Missionary Guild. These are the four major organizations that came into being by Acts of Parliament from the British Parliament days in the 1930s, from 1931 onwards. And these organizations continue to exist. And they are basically, the established groups. And over the years, with the diversity that has evolved, because there has been a rise of Islamic fundamentalism, and you have had some ideological differences, but at the end of the day, notwithstanding what transpired, for example, in 1990, Muslims in this country are all united by the belief in the oneness of Allah, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And there is that peaceful coexistence that we practice so that we have matured and we have the ability, notwithstanding what our sect might be or what our ideological differences. I am, for example, in the middle of this advocacy to bring back these children and women from Syria and Iraq. I do not belong to that very puritanical school of thought that many of them may have come from. But at the end of the day, having been trained as an attorney at law, I continue to advocate for their repatriation, reunification, and reintegration. These are issues that affect many families in communities throughout the country. And the Muslim community has already pledged its support in various ways by, there's a petition and they have signed it, supporting the move to repatriate. So at the end of the day, the Muslim community, as diverse as it is, I think our population is about more than 150,000 by now. And we would like to continue to play our part in building our communities and building our country and ensuring that Trinidad and Tobago is restored to that beautiful rainbow country that we were known for, with all races, all classes, and all cultures, everybody coming together. We have been a very multiracial, multi-religious, multicultural society, And we want that unity in diversity. I am in support of anyone who is promoting that unity and coming together for our people.
Nafeesa Mohammed, Eid Mubarak once again, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. It was a pleasure being here.